It's Tuesday. We have some guests. I'm going to do my thing, and then I want to also remind you tonight's my meeting in Frankstown at the Frankstown Park. We start at 7:30. I want to talk a bit about the corruption in the judiciary. I'm going to talk a little bit about the national issues, but predominantly I want to be discussing the Northside plan, so I'm inviting all the Northsiders to come out to the Frankstown Park tonight, 7:30. And then let me present this plan to you, the plan that I've put together, in hopes that you'll accept it and kindly remember, you can adjust this. I want you to be a part of it, a part of the development of it. Many have already contributed to it, and now we can just make it better. We can go down this new road, this new journey, and making Northside more prosperous, ensuring that we have low-income housing, ensuring that that mechanic shop is built, and make sure that we move Northside forward at your pace. So I want to touch a bit on some of the stuff that was said this morning, and this is directly to Ard McLean. And Ard, you don't go on your radio show and skirt around the issues with me. You can come with a full frontal attack anytime you're ready. Don't do your dirty work for your buddy. Let him be a man for once in his life and come straight at me. You just step aside and you deal with Johnny in East End. And let Ezra for once come as a man and face me once one-on-one. In the last election, he refused to debate me. He ran away. This election, he's made it even more obvious and run away, refusing to debate me. Not only is this part of democracy, but it's something that the people are entitled to hear. That is how that helps them make their decision on election day. And the message that he's sending is that he's not ready. He's the incumbent candidate, and the incumbent should never, ever run away from his opponent. But obviously, he's not prepared. Obviously, by his performance in Northside, he's not prepared. And he's made it clear that the Northside people need not expect anything different from him. What they got in his last term is what they're going to get again. So, Arden, there's a couple of things that you need to answer. And one, you need to tell the people of this country, in particular, the people of East End, who was the first Caymanian pharmacist, and why you would choose not to expose your buddy who's making a claim of being a pharmacist, because that title belongs to the people of East End and your family. You also need to name the first female pharmacist, and you need to tell them who that is and when she got it. Because Arden, the good people of East End, and those two particular individuals worked very, very hard to achieve that success, and they deserve to have the recognition for the sacrifices they made. So stop protecting your buddy, because all he's doing is dragging you down. Don't come and skirt around, and the next time you say that an American lady is asking why so many candidates are under investigation and why they're allowed to run, remember to tell her this, that your buddy is not under investigation for some reason, even though the law is there, Section 89 of the Penal Code, that he attempted to sell several hundred work permits to the Ritz-Carlton, that the police commissioner has received that complaint with all the evidence, yet nothing is happening. Don't forget to tell him that. Let him know that right now, what we're going through is a fight for freedom and justice in this country. If you're going to put integrity and justice on your sign, then here's what I suggest you do. Take a stand from it. Take a stand for integrity and justice if you're going to put it on your sign, and stop repeating it over and over. Because sitting next to who you're sitting next to, you're not doing justice any favors. You're making it look like we have no justice, that it's one-sided. You can't have justice for your friend and not for everyone, Arden. So, let me tell you, anytime you choose to come straight, come directly and attack me for your friend, you come. Make it a full frontal attack. And if you want to get nasty, we can get nasty too. I'm more than happy to go down that road with you. But if you want to debate the issues, if you want to debate performance, we can do that. Don't forget, you and I worked together for a very long time. You used to be the action man. I don't know what you become hanging out with this guy, because nothing has happened in Northside, and he's pulled you away. Every project presented in this country, he convinced you to help him fight against, rally people against, and that has left the people in this country unemployed today. The hardships in this country economically was the action that you and Ezra took for the last 4 years, defeating every project proposed, rather than doing what is right, what is best for the country. Sure, you can object to things, but add value to it. You guys objected. You didn't bring anything forward to the table. You didn't make any suggestions or recommendations. And you sat back in hopes that come today, when we're in the middle of this election, you could blame it on other people. And you're trying to do that. But that's not going to be, you're not going to go unchallenged on that. You guys, the public knows, you rallied people against everything. You left your two constituencies. You left Northside, you left East End, you went everywhere else, and you fought, and you left your people there. The Constitution is clear. You have legally the same rights to access of resources and money that West Bay have, Bordentown got, and everybody else, and you could have gotten it too. You refused to humble yourself to the then Premier and to this Premier and ensure that you got what was necessary for your districts. Has nothing to do with who Premier is. It has to do with the fact that the people gave you their vote, and you needed to fulfill your promises to them. And don't go back with, oh, I couldn't get anything because we're not the government. Because you have to remember, Arden, you and I were part of the PPM who wrote that Constitution, who wrote that Bill of Rights. And you have to remember that we added in there, for the sake of East End and for the sake of Northside, a protection clause that prevented any future government from denying those two districts their equity, their rights, their share of this country's resources. So let's not pretend that old dinosaur game where, oh, I couldn't get anything done because they didn't like me. Oh, I couldn't get anything done because I'm not the government. Those days were over. We ended that with the 2009 Constitution. So let's put it on the table now. Like I said, don't skirt around and nitpick at me, because I don't play that game anymore. The day that the old Joey that ran with you all in the last election, I buried him, okay? And I'm ready, anytime, in the place. You ask your boy, your friend, Ezra Miller, anytime he's ready to debate the issues, we can debate the issues. We can debate the national issues. We can debate the North Side issues. But he has to stop running. And he's dragging you down with him. He's taking you down the wrong path, and you've been there too long, Art. You need to walk away. It used to be a guy who believed in the poor people and believed that the job was about raising your people up. I don't know where you are now, and I don't know who this is I'm hearing on the radio. But Arden, that person must be somewhere still in there, because I chose you. I chose you 9 years ago to be the godfather of my youngest son. And you know I don't take that lightly. So I'm calling you out, Arden. I'm telling you, come on out here. Come on out here on the square and bring your brother with you, because this has to stop. The lies, the misleading of the public just for politics has to end. I'm in Frank's Sound tonight. The two of you can come. I'll bring some extra mics. Come on, let's debate the issues in front of the audience. Let's take it to the street and let's debate these issues. Like I said, if you all won't go down to Nassau Street too, I can go there too. Right now, it is time for this country to have true representation rather than just political innuendo and all of this other garbage that comes with the dinosaurs that have been in this business for too long. There are too many people unemployed. There are too many people losing their houses. There are too many people without food on their tables in both of those districts. And it's time for us to step up to the plate. And Arden, don't forget, we still have a conversation about that CUC license that we're going to have. So anytime you're ready, stop going out in front between me and Ezra. Stay to one side. This is between he and I, and it's about performance and representation. And everything else he's called me, because the days of Joey Ebanks being afraid are long gone. So, Mr. McLean, I'm just telling you like it is. Don't skirt around taking shots at me. You take one at me, I'm going to take a dozen at you. And you and I have been together for a long, long time. 20-odd years at CUC in the Customer Service Department. You and I created that department together. You and I worked side by side. And this time around, I'm not exposing my back for any daggers. I'm carrying a few, and I'm facing people like a man. Now, don't let this guy drag you down the street, because I'm telling you, I'm not taking any prisoners. And you guys can come full frontal attack, like I said. I'm standing here, my feet are planted squarely in the ground, and I'm ready. So bring it on. Right now, we're going to take a break. I'm going to go get my guests, bring them inside. Thank you all for joining me. Don't forget, I'm in Frank Sound tonight at the Frank Sound Park, starting at 7:30, and we're going to be having a nice discussion and chat. I'm inviting the whole country to come out and see and ask me questions. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Let's go to a short break. Video show, ladies and gentlemen, right here on Vibe 98.9 FM. Remember, the number is 946-9898. That's 946-9898. I brought my guests into the studio now, and we have, of course, back my two buddies, Juliet and Patrice, and they're always coming up with really tough questions for candidates, So they're going to conduct an interview with Miss Velma from West Bay, the UDP candidate for West Bay, and Miss Teresa, the UDP candidate for the District of Bordentown. And we're finally getting some women in here, and we're going to talk about some women issues, and this should be a great show. Well, actually, Patrice and Juliet always produce a really great show. So let's start with you, Juliet. We can work our way around. Everybody can introduce themselves, okay?
Great, thanks, Joey. And I will say this: your theme is "I'm not afraid." I will say only the brave women turn up on the Joey Ebanks show.
Amen.
Okay, so this evening, as Joey said, we have Miss Velma from West Bay, who is running with the UDP, and we have Teresa. Teresa, are you Louis Pitcairn or?
Teresa's just good.
Teresa is just good, and she's from the District of Bordentown. So, I'm going to start with you, Teresa. First question for you.
I mean, really, Juliet, can I say hello? How do you do? How are you?
I'm just ready for you, girl.
Yeah, women rolling like that.
Yeah,
well,
you
thanks very much for having us and inviting us to the show. And thank you also to the listeners for, tuning in to the most listened to radio show, or at least so I'm made to understand.
It certainly is. I've heard the same, that it's the most popular, has the most listeners, so thank you for throwing us in. Looking forward to the very lively debate.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me calm down a little bit, because I'm so glad to have you ladies here, and I have all these questions for you, and I'm sure Patrice does as well. But I want to start with you, Teresa. Mm-hmm. In the last election, you ran as an independent, and this time you're running with the UDP. Right. Can you tell us why that was your choice?
Well, I ran as an independent the last time and quickly discovered that Caymanians didn't want independent candidates. And I'm running with the UDP this time because I have a historic relationship with the party through Roy Borden and Gilbert McLean. In fact, persons like myself, Wally Whitaker, Chris Saunders, Al Saku, we all had our political tutelage, so to speak, while we were involved with the campaigns for Roy and Gilbert, starting sometime in the late 1990s. In fact, I recall specifically the election of 2000. So, that has been my background. And if you recall, I think there was an editorial in the Compass in February, which suggested that the UDP party is certainly the best stewards for the economy. So, in as much as there is some discussion and dialogue about independence and party politics and so on, I would, I'm taking that first small step, bold step in getting involved with the party, because, we have this perception that with our parties today, one of the things that put people off is the fact that you don't have the opportunity to think independently, and that, there's no room for dissension. That may or may not be the case. And in fact, I think in one of the books that Roy penned recently in the last couple of years, that was one of the concerns that he expressed, that the concerns that you have, whether Caymanians organize themselves as teams or whether they organize themselves as a party, one of the issue that seems to go to the core of whether or not that team or party survives is how we respond to dissenting views. And in our team, we have quite a few people with strong personalities, fairly rigorous ways of articulating issues and so on. So it's been an interesting few weeks thus far.
Okay. Yeah. Because I was going to ask you, because I know the former premier. He's very vocal, and he's. Yeah. And, well, not just him, because as you said, you have others within the team who have their different opinions and so on. But I'm glad to hear you say that within the team dynamics and with the different personalities, you've come to a point where, we can still communicate even if we don't agree. My question to Ms. Velma before I pass you all on to Patrice is, a little bit of the same, but recently when I come to West Bay, I'm hearing people saying they want change. They want change. Why did you choose the UDP? And if the rhetoric that we're hearing is representative of what West Bayers are saying, would you say you're on a losing team?
No one joins the race to lose.
Okay.
I didn't join a losing team. I'm on the winning team.
All right, that's confidence for you.
Yeah, well, of course you're going to hear the ordinary, ugly comments. Yeah, that's a part and parcel. Mm-hmm. I joined the UDP because it is the team that promotes, and I have seen throughout the years, work for all. Are they perfect? No, I'm not perfect, so I can't expect the members of the party to be perfect, but we all come with a fair sense of balance. We come with our own strengths. We come with our sense and deep passion to work for the greater good of all. Are you going to please all of the people all of the time? No. But if it is in the best interest, then I give my support.
Can I just stick in, because there is the view too, I mean, one of the questions that you tend to hear is that there's a proliferation of people, that's running in this particular campaign cycle. And one of the views that you tend to hear is that you have a group of people who are not happy with either party because of the performance. There is the view that, party politics encourages patronism, so that the political group that is in power will distribute goods and services and contracts and so on to certain groups, and only those groups will eat while that particular group is in power. And people seem to be really, really concerned about this type of behavior. One of the concerns that I've expressed consistently for the last 2 years, certainly whenever I was invited to participate on CITN to talk about these issues, is the way in which the Westminster model of democracy, question whether or not that served us really, really well in the Eastern Caribbean countries. I am not sure that it has. And it's the level of competitiveness and the level of brinksmanship that is involved with this type of democracy cannot bode well in a small community and as one that is as intimate as ours. And I say this because you get the character assassination, you get you get the mudslinging, and this obviously discourages people from wanting to enter into the race, especially women, because women also take care of the families and so on. So one of the concerns that I have, obviously, is the way in which going forward we try to manage that. I know one of the reasons why we came up with a code of conduct was to try and ameliorate certain of those types of issues and to address them, if people sign off on something like that. I was listening to to Chucky's meeting last night, and I know he specifically called me by name, and he said, he made a suggestion that, because I'm with the UDP party, I'm on the wrong platform, and suggesting that, that there is an alignment in terms of my behavior with that of Mr. Bush's, when he suggested that birds of a feather flock together. Now, I know Chucky very, very well and have a tremendous respect for him and his family and so on. But when we reduce relationships to spectator sports, like what you see in the gladiator shows and so on, it does not bode well for relationships in community, and that's one of the concerns. I prefer, and even when I ran my campaign the last time, I focused on the issues, and that is what I think in a small community like ours, We need to try to discipline ourselves to the point where we focus on the issues and try to get away from that type of spectator sport, because Caymanians are very, they're disenchanted with that type of behavior. And I'm only using that as an example. I mean, on the campaign trail, we hear all kind of craziness, for example, about Chris and myself. That's just totally untrue. And people are now beginning to tape what people say when they come into their homes that's negative. And
Yes.
in the last campaign, someone did that where we were concerned. And my committee members were saying, well, T, should we report this to the police? And I said, okay, hold on, sit back. What do we achieve when we do something like that? And I think of the kids that are involved when you, and I think this is what women bring to the political arena.
That was where I was going.
Yeah. So my view towards that behavior is aligned to the view of the particular family that's going to be affected by inappropriate behavior. So at the end of the day, I said, look, guys, this is political sport. We don't like it. It's not good for us and so on, but it's par for the course in this particular environment. Our particular model, in my mind, is designed to educate people and to take the community forward by disengaging in that type of behavior.
Right.
And I totally agree with some of what you're saying, because for me personally, I'm an open-minded voter, and I go to the meetings and I want to hear what everybody has to say, but I am there to listen to the issues, and that helps me to determine what I'm going to do with my vote.
Yes,
Patrice.
definitely.
I wanted to follow on from a comment that Teresa made with respect to using a different approach, following the code of conduct that the UDP members have signed. My thing is, are we as a country, one, mature enough to take on that approach a little quicker? Like, should we have to wait till the next election before we can take that on? Two, how will that work in practical terms when we have a generation that's Jerry Springer fed?
I can't speak to the Jerry Springer fed folks, but I can say that you won't know without taking that first step, which is what we've done, and it's sufficiently moderate to address or temper certain of the behavior that you used to see or that one tends to see in the political arena. We're all friends here. I mean, as I entered this building this evening, I reflected on the relationships between people that I have in this general election and the relationship that I have with Joey. And I thought about how the way in which our politics has evolved has brought about a situation where, in order to get a perception that, you're going to be given a fair opportunity, you're going to be given a fair opportunity to be heard, you have to go to extremes. And I worry about Joey. I really, really, really do. Because I have walked in similar circumstances. I know what it's like to almost miscarry my twins when you're standing up for principles. And, if I didn't have my husband, who is my best friend, and if I didn't have someone like Dr. D'Alvis at the time, who took a view about, determining, are you going to allow principle to dictate certain issues with your family? And I remembered when I was thinking, the tears were streaming down my eyes at the time, and I was thinking of my mother. And, the kind of values that she raised me with. My mother was someone that, it's either black or white. But in real life, obviously, we live in grays. Right. But when you feel so strongly about something and, you're willing to go that extra step to do what is right, it's a rare individual in this country that does it. And I'm not going to judge Joey's position. I'm not going to get involved with what he's involved with, because that has the point that I'm making is that for anyone to take a definitive position similar to the one that Joey has taken, he's a very brave soul to do that. And, I'll just end that there. And, like I said, it's really sad for me because I'm friends with everyone that's involved. And I'm looking on to see, oh my goodness, this is what we've come to. And I'm so saddened.
Yeah. And I echo the same thing, that Joey was my traffic department partner for years. I know his family very intimately. And so I feel deeply for him. But I also take off my hat to him that he stands strong on what his principles are. Likewise, as Teresa said, we come into adulthood as mainly bringing what was instilled in us, be it through the grandparents, the extra family, the village mentality, the love and support that you got at home, the Christian upbringing. And my mother and my father and all those family members and cousins and extra people in the neighborhood helped to make me into the person that I am. So I know that that is norm for Caribbean people. That is just a norm. What do I take away from it is that I view him in a total different light. I pray for him and I wish him the best.
And then, as he said, that's all we can do, because we don't decide whether he's innocent, guilty, what position he holds, and so on. When I on a previous show, I was saying that people look at us and they say, "Why are you and Patrice going on Joey's show?" Well, he's a part of our community, and so on. So you don't ostracize people. A man is innocent until proven guilty,
Exactly.
and it doesn't make me guilty by association or otherwise.
Right.
But moving on. A question I have I'm throwing it out. Either one of you can answer, or
Sure.
both of you if you want. Do you believe that women in politics? Well, let me ask the question differently. What do women offer to the political process? What are women offering to politics? What are you going to be doing differently from what men have been doing for years?
Well, I think I'll go first, Therese. Women bring
Sorry,
up...
before you answer that question, I just want to remind our listeners that you can call in and you can ask questions of the ladies. The number is 946-9898, 946-9898. These are the people who are running in your districts. Make sure you ask the questions. And we have a caller on the line now, so before you come to that question, we'll take that call. Go ahead, caller.
Hello, Miss Teresa.
Hello.
And Miss Wilma, how are you this evening?
We're doing well, thanks. And how are you?
Thanks to hear you all on there.
Thank you.
A quick question. When you all get in, would you all be able to do anything about, like, controlling? They have a lot of school leavers, and some is coming out again in June, I think it is. And I've been speaking to some over the weekend, and they said that they cannot put out any resumes or fill out any applications because the requirements are that they need a police record and a photo. And the price of a police record has gone up now to 25 CI and $12 for 3 pictures. And the students and the people are not working. How suppose one student have to put out 14 or 15 resumes or applications, and everybody is asking for a police record. Now this morning Mr. Miller said that he didn't think that there were no requirements requiring for a police record, but every company, trust me, is asking for a police record. And remind you now, a police record is only good for 6 months and it cannot be photocopied. How are these young people? They would have to go around and beg every time for $25, or that would be a total of $37 to put out one resume. Suppose one student puts out 25 resumes.
Yeah, that's clear.
Would you all do anything about that?
Of course, that's clearly an untenable situation in the current economy.
Right.
And largely, too, as a result of the globalization of the way in which the working environment has evolved, because, you know, you have the KYC requirement, you need to know who, anyone that's engaged in any banking relationship, for example, they need to know who their clients are. Anybody who's going to employ someone is also going to want to know, you know, who, you know, they're employing. But implicit in that requirement, you know, I wonder too if there's some level of discrimination, in the sense that, you know, why are we?
This is a recording.
Sorry, what's happening? Oh, okay. Oh, my apologies. We seem to have a technical blip right here, and it wasn't clear whether or not we were still on here. But it seems to me, clearly it's untenable, definitely something that we have to look into. And I wonder sometimes if having that requirement also is something that's primarily related to certain persons in our community as well.
Do you want to?
I don't have anything to add. I think Teresa's answered it sufficiently.
Right. But I'm grateful for that question, because it's true that a lot of the young kids who are trying to find these jobs have to come up with some money in
Right.
advance, and then they're turned down, and so
And their parents don't have the
And
money.
the parents
Parents
don't have
don't
the money
have
to begin with.
right.
And $50 or $60 sometimes is what you have for groceries. And you got to give it to the child to produce a police record and pictures. You know,
Because even
It's-
if you go to the Department of Labor employment, you have to produce one for them as well. So I think that was a pretty interesting call.
Right.
Okay, back to the question we were asking. What do
Okay.
you women offer to the political process? What are you going to do differently than the men have done over the years? And we have another caller on the line. I don't
Okay.
think they want you to answer this question. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, no, I wasn't quite finished yet. I'm
Oops.
sorry, I got cut off.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't know
we're
what
sorry.
happened.
Yeah.
But another issue again. What are your thoughts about the 7-year work? And after 7 years, you can apply for Caymanian status. The old folks used to say, Miss Teresa, your mom always used to tell us when we were working together that too much beans in one pot, it all runs over.
Oh dear.
And if we have say 50,000 people more that has been here for 7 years, and they apply for status and they get it, how much more can this little 100 square mile island hold? What are your thoughts about that, please? Because I think it should be you work here for 7 years, and when you're giving you the permit, let you know that after 7 years you have to go. Because another thing, I'll remind you that most of those people just have a small savings here. They're sending majority of their money back home. And you would see that person here for 7 years and mightn't have nothing, but check back home and see what they got. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your call. Thank you.
That is a double whammy. That is a really loaded question, because, and it's a relevant one, and unfortunately we have not had any administration that's been willing or courageous to really get to the root of this. On the one hand, you have employers who require certain expertise, and some of the times they require people with, you know, minimal skills, because the view was, for example, in the hotel industry, that Caymanians had an aversion towards working in the hotel industry. So you needed to bring in people who were willing to work in those industries for small amounts of money. So on the one hand, there is the need within the economy. There's also the need that the employer has, and whether or not the employer can afford to employ certain persons. In the white-collar skilled areas, for example, law and accounting, there was the view that, you know, you needed to have quite a number of foreign lawyers and so on living here. And you will have noticed the way in which our immigration law evolved in such a way that we started to try to cherry pick who lived here and who did not. Mm-hmm. And the view was that we could not afford an environment where you were responsible for people when they got to a certain age if they were only making maybe say $2, $3, $4 per hour. And because we didn't have the systems and infrastructure to accommodate persons like that, you didn't necessarily want to take responsibility for them. Then, of course, in 1999, 2000, you had, oops.
Go ahead, we have a call on the line, but finish your
but
thoughts.
because this is really, really tough. My view is that we have to figure out the kind of economy that we want. Do we want a system where we're going to have $1 tourists? Do we want a system that's going to be that one of it is economically in the upper echelons? Because, I was thinking of something practical the other day. We had a flight that was coming in. We had about 3 flights coming in. And one of them included a client of mine that had been traveling for like 2 days. And they couldn't get any taxis from the airport because the taxis were congregated by the dock, collecting folks that are not going to spend more than $1 or so at the dock, compared to folks like this guy coming in who will spend a good $4,000 for 3 nights while he's here. Mm-hmm. So that situation asks some pretty tough questions within itself. Do we need, for example, a dock that's going to accommodate a certain group of people vis-a-vis an airport that's going to accommodate certain people and generate certain wealth within the community?
Mm-hmm. Right. Let's go to that call and we'll come back and continue that conversation. Go ahead, caller. Are you still there? Questions. Hello.
Hello. Yes. Good evening.
Go ahead.
Yes. I just want to say to Ms. Teresa and
Ms. Velma.
Ms. Velma, yes. The people in Bodentown who attacked Ms. Teresa, I think because always people who launch their attack against the strong candidates, and because they know that you and Mr. Chris, one of the strongest candidates in Bodentown.
I don't know if that's the case, though. I don't know if that's just the case. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I was just saying, generally speaking, that we want to encourage behavior that focuses on the issues. So my comment was not necessarily designed to cast aspersion at anyone.
He thinks that you're a strong candidate in Bodentown. Yes.
Yes, but I think all this country know. Mr. Teresa and Mr. Chris. I think they're one of the nice, kindest, good, nice people, and their history speak about them. And I think when people attack Miss Teresa special, which she is always very polite lady, she never attack anyone. I know she can stand for herself, but you see, it's hurt you when you see those people desperate and they don't have nothing to show or to give to the people, only attacks and candidates. But what I call about today is one thing. I really advocate for one thing. After this election, we need to start work in quota for women. This is very important subject. Mm-hmm. And this issue of quota for women in Cayman is very important, because really we need to see more women in the legislation assembly, because women is very important. They have very important role to play. They play in the past very important role, and they will play in the future. And we have some very high educated, capable women in Cayman, and we need to stand behind them, and we need to push forward this idea of quota for women in Cayman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So moving on from there, why do you think there are not more women involved in politics then?
Well, that was funny enough that he would bring that up, because
an equal pay.
He would bring that up because I was thinking about there's 56 candidates in this election, but there's only 8 women. Mm. And women and it ties with the question you were trying to ask before we got the calls, which is what the women bring to the table. And I would dare say that women bring a really unique balance, because even though we're going to debate and differently a subject or a topic or a project that needs to go forward, we are going to also, because of the nurturing in that female, she's naturally going to also include in that debate and in her contribution, she's going to use her intuition and how does it affect not only the general public, but how does it affect the woman, more so the single parent or maybe the family unit. So women bring, I would dare say, a real firm, even balance, and we need more women in the LA.
Okay, we have a caller on the line, so we'll come back to that. Thank you for calling. Go ahead. Hello, go ahead.
Oh, hello. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you?
Hi, we can barely hear you.
Can't hear you. Hello?
Can you hear me now? Hello?
A little bit better. That's a little bit better.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you?
Good,
Hi.
fine. Thanks, and you?
I'm good, thanks, and I'm excited to hear the lady candidates on air because I have a question that I think the lady candidates could speak to a little bit more, I think, than a regular candidate. And what I'm calling is I feel that here in the Cayman Islands, our maternity leave and family leave are way behind even of our Caribbean nation peers. And I would love to hear, if elected, what you ladies would do to address that, to sort of extend those leaves, because, you know, when we look at our societal issues, we see an increase in a lot of developmental delays. We see stressed out moms, you know, and it's you know, it's and dads too, you know, and so when we look at countries that have lower crime rates, that have kids with less developmental delays, and we look at countries where the
Hello? Did we lose her?
Yeah, but she's spot on. We're definitely going to look into. You can rest assured that if folks in the Bordentown area give me that opportunity to represent them and to be their ally within the Legislative Assembly, you can guarantee that is something that I'm going to review. I'd also like to take that in the context of cost to the employers, which is why I say this is something that we need to look at very carefully and broadly. The caller was absolutely correct and spot on when she made reference to the developmental delays. When we started to develop this community into an offshore vicinity, you know, we had a structure in place where we had the aunts and the aunties and cousins and everybody taking care. That's right. So everyone had eyes on the kids as they grew up. And in fact, you could be in Georgetown doing something, and by the time you get to Bordentown, your parents knew about it. And in those days, we didn't even have telephone. No, I'm serious. So when we decided to take on this trajectory that we're on, we dismantled the system that was in place that took care of the developmental behaviors and so on, and never replaced it. And I recall specifically raising these questions in the 80s and 90s, and was told at one point that, you know, certain folks are not in the business of providing creche. Yet the mothers came to work 8, stayed to work until 9, 10, 11 o'clock, however long it took to get the job done, while the children were home with the keys and the lock and really supervising themselves. And now we're talking about children having children, and you see the report that was done the other day by Yolanda Ford, where kids that inmates that are there that are teens, their parents were between 17 and 19 years old as well. And no one takes on the responsibility for that. So we have, on the one hand, a system where they close their eyes to the personal issues, and they define those things as personal, but they don't see how it really affects their bottom line as well. Because when kids are left unattended, those are the folks that go to jail, and you have this level of recidivism. You know, so we really have to be smart and think about common sense approaches to making this whole community a lot more responsible and holistic.
Okay, we have another call on the line. Go ahead, caller. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Is this a program?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead with your call. Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Congrats to the moderators.
Thank you.
And trying to highlight something that I've not heard anyone brought up. since the program started, and it's to do with the public in general and the utility bills. The utility bills we were getting at the end of the month, and suddenly changed to the 20th. Now nobody getting paid on the 20th around here, and they just go ahead. The light, water, and telephone. These are the three main utilities on the island, and they've changed the dates, put them to the 20th, and now charge us $10 or charge us fines when we don't pay them on time, when we don't get any pay until end of month. Now, I think these are things that I would like to hear highlighted, and that the governments that there be that are telling us whatever they're going to do for us come the 22nd and thereafter, we need them to talk to us about these things and talk to these utility companies and tell them that the people of this country is suffering under this thing. They can't just go ahead and forget us because they want to make their financial statement look good when the rest of the country is looking bad as if they're not paying their rent.
Yes, I totally understand.
Their things on time.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we are being charged a fee.
Right, because
as if we are late.
Right, because
we are not late. We just have no say.
Well,
come on.
And I hear you. And we have been talking about consumer protection law since, I'd say, ad nauseum. When I graduated, when I was called to the bar in the middle of 1991, I recall having this conversation with Roy Bodden at the time. And I know Roy sought to bring something like that to the legislation.
But nobody follow it up.
Precisely.
Right.
And that is because we have a group of people that is organized, that represents the employers, and we are against folks that are going to represent employees. So,
but that's not good.
I know it's not good.
Exactly.
I know it's not good. And you have a labor law that is...
what is happening now, and the financial strain that the complete country is going through,
yes, ma'am.
The only people that can show that they are doing well is the three utility companies that are suffering us, the people here who can't even find money to pay it, much less they say you're overdue by X time. Not to mention Lime, they put it on the air, put it on your phone, and you don't have no say. One day I called the lady about it. I said to her, how can you change my contract and put it to 20th? And then you're going to put a recording on my phone and tell me that my bill is overdue. My bill is not overdue. I don't have no money to pay you now. I have money to pay at the end of the month when I get paid. The lady said to me, well, she can't help me. So I said, who do I go to? The you know what she said to me? She said, well, lady, do your next best. I said, okay, there's another utility company.
Well, thank you for that call and for those questions. You should see how vigorously the ladies are writing down the information because I am sure that they're going to take that forward.
No, but this is something these are the things that I would love to see addressed because this is directly affecting the consumer.
That's right. Thank you, ma'am. And you can rest assured that we will take it up and we will work hard to ensure that there is some sense of fairness across the board. That's what we can promise you. Hello?
She's gone.
Did she hang up?
I wanted us to take a little step back, and I know we've had several calls, and this question might seem a little like the cart before the horse, but I want to ask each and every one of you, tell the listening public, the ones who are voting for you, or the ones who are just interested in seeing what perspectives you have, what was the one thing that you were thinking that made you decide, yes, I'm going to run as a candidate in this election, and how far back was that for you? Either one of you.
My three kids. I had a very long conversation with somebody that I have a tremendous respect for, and the individual said to me, T, I know that you had some serious losses with your mom and your, Margin, Kathy, and, people who really, really impacted your life significantly. My mom assisted me in raising my kids, and she facilitated the development of my career. I mean, she was just an awesome person. And so my 3 kids, I want them to grow in a community where they don't have to, go through or undergo the abuses that many of us have experienced in this community. I want to leave a community behind that they can inherit and they can stand firmly with pride and say, this is my home and I have a voice and I have a say and I want to also contribute. So my kids were front and center of the decision that I made, ultimately made after spending some 6 hours with, like I said, somebody who convinced me. I remember she said to me, well, Teresa, you can go on that talk show and you can go on that TV show as much as you want. But all of those policies and visions that I hear that you have, you won't have any of those things implemented in this community unless you are elected. That's what she essentially said. And she also said that, we really, really need women who have a track record of standing independently and is, unafraid to take on the really tough issues.
Love that.
Right. I kind of, it's rather difficult to answer in the sense of 2 women that I knew had my back are not here. This is the first Mother's Day without them. But when I think of how I was raised and what pushed me, what was that tipping point? My grandsons, my nieces, and my little nephew. I couldn't change what I had already been told about my youngest one, my youngest daughter, but I could ensure that going forward, I took that step to make this island, this home, this country a better place. I know I bring a wealth of experience. I know I come from a lineage of hard-working women. My mom was one of the women who cared for family while my dad beat the raging seas on a tanker. My mom opened the accounts. My mom managed finances. She saved. She went without, though, to give us. And I thought, if it is one opportunity, if this is the one opportunity that I, Valma Powery Hewitt, have to make my mark, to make my difference, I choose to do it. I read the quote, "Great character is not born through ease or convenience, but through doing now what has to be done, even though it is very hard to do." And so I use that as my mantra. I read it. I teach it to my grandsons. I'm teaching it to my nieces and nephew. I think that the tipping point for me was that I had this one opportunity, and I took it.
Wow, I almost forgot my next question, but thankfully my co-host prodded me and made sure that I got back on track. So thank you both for those very honest, very revealing answers. And I'm going to yield to another caller, possibly. Yes, we have another caller on the line, and then I'll ask my question.
Go ahead.
Hello, good evening. A question for the ladies.
Good afternoon.
I would like to know if they are aware of the sector of the working class, the foreign working class, who are predominantly women, who have to work under some very trying conditions.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, they're paying their own work permit fees.
Mm-hmm.
They're having to have relationships to help them to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
They're not part of the electorate.
Right.
As you know, saying that the island has maybe 60,000 people, of which 20 are entitled to vote. So I think they're part of that other 40,000 who are not allowed to vote. I would like to know if the ladies see this as a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and if they plan to address it, because I tend to think the look at it is don't exist, like the ostrich. But there are a lot of women out there, and I just want to know if, in terms of women issues, they are aware of this situation.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, because I think what the caller is asking is that, or is saying that we have a lot of women in the community who are doing things that they may not necessarily want to do, but because of the conditions under which they're employed, and that is a very interesting. That's a very interesting point.
I would use the word endemic rather than interesting.
Yeah.
But go on.
Yeah, but so to the question,
I know, coming from my background, the 32 years of service that I've done, I've worked in the 3 different areas of government, and I've gleaned a good understanding of some of the kickbacks that are expected of women. Unfortunately, it is so demeaning and so painful. I think that we perhaps, because it is painful, don't want to look it in the eye.
When you say we, Velma, who you're referring to? We, the society? Or
yes,
we as women?
The society, and in particular women.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
I think it's outright fair, because people are concerned about, they would prefer to tolerate the abuses to get some money as opposed to go in to make the complaints. And we don't have a security net that actually deals with this. And this also boils down to the whole issue of whether or not we're going to have a living wage. Because, and that has to be something that we take seriously. Gone are the days now, when you can treat people like trash simply because you can.
Or because you're my employer, it means I have to sleep with you.
Or slavery.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm thinking the caller is alluding to some women having to sell their bodies in order to make ends meet. Some women are afraid to stand up to their employers. So, don't beat around the bush. We don't want to stand up to
the bush.
the employers, because this is how we're going to earn our living. This is how we're going to feed our children, and so on.
And many of them come from already disenfranchised situations. So now you are now compounding that by actually expecting and demanding, in most cases, sexual favors.
It becomes connected to your work permit.
Exactly.
You do me this favor, otherwise I'm going to turn your permit in. We have another caller on the line, though, so let's take that call, and then we'll come back to another question. Go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
Hello.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi.
How you doing?
Listen, this is a call trying to find out from any of your panelists there if they have any idea why the Commissioner of Police was granted another 4 years of tenure, when that is the worst Commissioner of Police that ever entered the Cayman Islands.
Okay, thank you very much for your call. That's a matter that we will leave for another day. The topic today, we are trying to focus on women in politics and women's issues. But interesting question. Thank you.
Great. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Getting us back on track to issues of women. Much of what we've talked about today involves a combination of social and or economic policies. And thinking from a practical standpoint, these policies are going to cost more money. They're going to require somewhat more in the way of infrastructure. They're going to require more diversions of our budget into programming or operational fees. How do you then, in light of our huge debt and debt payments and cutbacks that people have been calling for in the civil service, how then do you sell these ideas of these policies and these programs, particularly the ones that address latchkey kids, that address some of the social inadequacies that are occurring for our children, our women? We have our Family Resource Center promoting a program called Strong Families, Strong Cayman. And these programs, they've been building quietly, and they've been doing a lot with a little, because I have an idea from looking at the public budget that they get proportionally less each year. Every time there are major capital projects in the works, their budget gets cut, and we tend to put our budgets on things that are big, large, and visible. How then do you sell that to the public?
So what I'm hearing you say is that
how are we going to ask people to vote for or agree with more diversions of our budget on social policies when we've had a track record of cutting and cutting and cutting social projects in favor of capital expenditure?
Could it be that politicians, and this is for the ladies to respond to, since they're the politicians, but could it be that they generally see economics as major projects? They don't see the social issues and so on as maybe as becoming for a politician in terms of investing. If you invest in a major project, you're getting money coming in, there's revenue generated, but when you invest in social issues, what is the outcome? What is the feedback? Just food for thought, but ladies, the question is over to you.
It depends on the specific areas, because I know there is a view that we need to find efficiencies in the system, because some people have a view about how government spends its money. For example, I know one of the complaints that I hear time and time again is that you have folks that are staying in apartments that you might pay $1,500, $2,000 for, but you might find an apartment that costs, say, $1,000 or something significant less, and and I don't know how true this is, but this is what I'm being told consistently when I'm on the campaign trail, that we need to find ways in which to create economies of scale and use the money efficiently, spend it efficiently in some of the social service areas. That is obviously something that we're going to have to look into to identify where we can actually cut or become more efficient. But something, Patrice? It's not everything that costs money, Sometimes we just have to use our resources as individuals to organize ourselves to become more efficient and to get things done. If, for example, you want to organize a women's group, and we already have significant women's groups, as I know I was a part of it when we were structuring some of them, and my mind is taken on the point that was raised by the second to previous caller about women having to undergo debasing circumstances simply because they want to make a living. That I'm not necessarily thinking will cost significant amounts if you can bring women in to talk about some of the concerns. Where the cost may rise, for example, is developing the legislation to deal with it, making it mandatory, for example, for people to make reports, even if the woman is unwilling to do so herself.
Right.
So those are things that we can sit down and talk about and deal with the cost. But the truth is, all of us as a community is going to have to consider what it costs to keep the society cohesive and coherent and safe, i.e. crime-free, and how that impacts continuing to create an economy that is viable and you can make a living, a significant living. You can't have one without the other, and we're now seeing the effects when you go to the extreme on one hand, where you focus only on a business-friendly environment and you ignore the social consequences that come with that.
Northward then becomes full, and we spend more per prisoner than we would have per child as a student. So it has to have a balance, and we need to find that balance and work towards it. But it also takes the community it is not only government. I think government is the initiator. I see government as the initiator, but the public and the facilitator, yeah. And the public and the private sector, building on that, the public and private sector, building on them, and the businesses in the community coming together and assisting and helping. One of the great areas would be, in the social sense, would be the after-school programs. I'm a big proponent on it because I utilized it as a single mother raising my 2 girls. I relied on it because my mother was working. My mother wasn't able to help me as much as she wanted to. So you have to use the society, the businesses, and we must recognize that when we forget one, we pay the other way. Mm-hmm. So we need to come to a happy medium and try to balance it.
Okay, before we go to a break, I know that Miss Velma has to leave us, but I have a question for both of you ladies before Miss Velma leaves.
Sure.
And this is personal, so I am going to bring this in. Women who reach their 50s, I'm almost there. For the last 25 years, I was almost there. But anyway, but women who are in my age bracket, they find it very difficult to find a job.
Okay.
Let's say that for some reason they lost their jobs before, they're now applying, they have to get back out there and work. How are they going to survive if they cannot afford their health care?
Right.
They cannot pay their mortgages, they cannot buy their food. This system, does it currently make provision for older women, or as the saying goes, they put out to pasture? What happens? What are you as women considering for women who are, because 50-year-old women are still as young.
Are you
young
kidding?
Hello. I'm 56.
Okay, then. So you see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Or as Medea would say, hello.
So what are my ladies who want our votes having
I
mind for our ladies?
I would say to you that we, as a UDP party, propose and would encourage the microfinancing so that the women who aren't able to find employment can be their own business owners, their own boss. And I think that is a good way to go. I also encourage women to go ahead in the meantime and take that extra class, get yourself prepared, because you would need it. The world is ever changing, so it's always good to be on top. And as my mother would say, you're never too old to learn.
Yeah, I agree that the world is full of opportunities, and I think we were talking a little bit about this
earlier.
before we came in. Yeah, I know we've been talking specifically about those things, and in fact, directing it to women in particular, because women handle money a lot better. Okay. As I said to you, we were thinking. The thing is, when you reach that age, you will have significant experience and skills. And it's how are you now going to use those skills to make you make money, to make you become more marketable? And I think going the way of the microloans, as we were talking about, is certainly one example of addressing this problem. The worry, as I alluded to, was the concern that I have if you have to take up the cost with respect to pensions and health care, especially if you're a small business owner. These are all things that we're going to have to sit down and think about carefully. We're aware of the problems. We know where the issues exist, and it's now to develop a coherent policy that's going to address that.
So you're saying to me then that your party, even though you have not yet been elected, you're already considering this.
I've spoken to one. Yeah, we sit. Listen, we are not only a working party, we are thinkers,
active thinkers.
Very good. We have a caller on the line. Oh, we lost that caller. All right, we're going to go to a commercial break and give Miss Velma some time to leave, and I hope Teresa will stay with us for a few more minutes. Oh, you have a meeting as well?
Well, I thought it was just an hour.
Oh, Teresa, come on, stay with us so we can continue to chat.
Next time so that we can plan.
Absolutely,
Thank
absolutely.
You,
okay, go ahead, caller. Go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi. Okay, finally got you.
Hi, we can hear you.
If you can turn your radio down a little bit because you're echoing.
Right now. Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. How are you guys doing this evening?
We're good.
Good,
Especially
thank
now
you.
that you've called. By the way, you notice a lot of men calling.
A lot of men are calling.
Yes,
Hello.
very good.
This is Bing from West Bay.
Yes, sir.
Bang.
Yeah. So I want to put my 2 cents in there. A little while ago, there was a caller that called in talking about the economy and the way it's being affected by so many work permit holders.
Mm-hmm.
That is something, I think that many people here have not properly grasped the impact of. And the way I see it is, like, when I'm giving an analogy of it, is I try to tell people, picture your economy being like, say, the Annex or Georgetown Primaries football field, and the walls are 30 feet high. The fence is like 30 feet high, and it's containing water, but that's your economy. And on each corner, you have a 6-foot diameter pipeline draining it. Can you imagine the job it takes to maintain that level, keep that tank full? Look at it like this as well. I think that when a person comes into your country, if they're not a contributor, if they're not being paid a salary that allows them to live decently, it's them to compromise. They start entertaining criminal thoughts. They engage in the things that are illegal. In many cases, I'd say for the most part, those work permit holders, they help out a few people, a small sector of our economy, the people that own the big businesses and stuff like that, but they don't create any new money. They don't generate any new business. Do you know what I mean by saying that?
I do, for sure. I guess my question is, what's your alternative? What's your suggestion?
We find ourselves in a situation like how Canada was in when I first got there, where one time they were selecting quality of people. They were looking for people that had good ethics, good family structure, and some money that they could invest, but decent, honest money.
But you're not suggesting that people, because they're poor, are honest and decent, right?
No.
Right.
No. So let me finish. So what I'm saying is, Canada decided that that growth was not fast enough for them. Mm-hmm. So they wanted everybody that had big bucks. Mm-hmm. And with that came things that weren't good for them. I think what we need to start doing is attracting, no doubt about it, we definitely need to grow a population. There isn't enough people here. There really isn't. But we need to start targeting people that show ways that they can invest into this economy and grow it, help to create jobs. That's my 2 cents on that whole thing. I just think it's we're in a sense, like someone had put it, importing poverty. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing.
Well, before the caller leaves, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
I'm slightly younger than these ladies, only slightly younger, because I'm only 28.
She wishes.
I'm sorry, I just had to bring some levity there. I wanted to say to you that it, just as someone who's watched the changes in our immigration structures and laws, it appears that is what we have been targeting. So what do we then need to do differently?
And also to add to that, do you realize that a lot of people have this opinion that the work permit fees that are being paid are developing and building our economy? I'm not quite sure how real that is, but your thoughts?
It's funny. Ironically, there was a guy on this same show the other evening, or not the other evening, a few weeks ago. Joey had a gentleman, I think he's out of Georgetown, and he was given mathematic analogy of what the true picture was, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had said that the work permit system generates around $1.5 million or something like that, but the output to social service recipients or indigents is nearly 20 million. Now, that doesn't translate into good math, if that's correct. The more people you have, the more of your people you have working, the better your economy is going to be. If you have financial wealth in your country, and that wealth belongs to your residents, your people, your citizens, the stronger that country is going to be. To me, that's basic arithmetic. And you notice that when Caymanians or when locals are making a decent salary and paying their bills and feeding their kids and able to have a little bit of fun, nobody's squabbling.
That's right. So, that's right.
Yeah, we have to. I'm going to say something here that's probably going to rub some people the wrong way, but okay, I'm going to try to compress this a little bit. When I was living in Canada, I used to be an operator on an IBM Systems P38 for a company that did 600 million a year. Okay, and that system was highly dependent on me as an operator. They brought in something called an AS400, which a few of you might know about. It's quite small, like the size of a small refrigerator. That thing sent me home. It didn't need an operator. It pretty much did everything by batch submission, and it pretty much took care of itself. Now, they have a system there which you have unemployment insurance. Now, what they're doing is they're deducting money from your salary on a monthly basis and banking it for you within the system, so that when you get laid off, something happens, you're out of a job, you have some money accumulated there that you could live off of. Now, I didn't like that, even though it was my money there. It was eroding away my self-esteem and all that kind of stuff, and I came out of the country. I didn't want to be a burden to that system. I came out of the country. I came home, got back on my feet, maybe that's what we need here, a system like that, unemployment insurance program,
But I think that some insurance companies offer that, for example, if you've been working and you're earning, say, $1,000 a month, for the time, if you purchase the insurance and you're unemployed for certain reasons under the specific contractual arrangement that you have with that insurance company, you'll continue to earn that $1,000 until such time that you find employment. But here's what I was thinking while you were speaking. Quite a number of people did well financially over the last 40 years. In fact, most people in white-collar jobs that came here have done pretty well. The question is, why didn't quite as many Caymanian on a relevant ratio do equally well under the spurts of growth that we enjoyed over the last 40 years? I guess that's my question to you.
Oh, that's a catch-22 one. But a lot of it's discipline. A lot of it the lack thereof.
In savings?
Yeah, disciplines and savings, and we did. For a lot of Caymanians, we have not been taught to save and how to invest and how to work the money. Like you hear Americans talking about smart money all the time. Well, if you got your money working for you, then working hard for you, then you personally don't physically have to work as hard. And I think that we didn't know. We didn't have those skills. A lot of us, and some of us were just really squanderous, blowing it on toys and whatnot, because it's the first time opportunity to experience those things and just simply overindulged. But I kind of lost my train of thought on the earlier statement that I made when I was talking about living in Canada and stuff like that. I firmly believe, that when a situation gets so tough in a country that it's having a problem of sustaining and supporting its true natives, okay, then it's time for you to tell some people that you got to go home. It sounds hard and tough, but that's just the way it is. Many of those, I don't know how true it is, but I've heard that there are people here on work permits that have gotten laid off and they're still here and they're collecting assistance from government. And if that's true, that's just absolutely wrong. Those people should be sent home. Goodbye. Sorry, you will, come back when things are good again. But for now, we can't afford to have you here, and that's it.
And perhaps with that train of thought, it might mean that if we know as Pats working in the community that come the end of your tenure, come the end of your permit, that the possibility of you returning home exists, you may obviously plan your life a little bit differently as well.
True.
Yeah.
So
once people know and once people are aware this is it, you're going to be here for a limited time frame, perhaps we might also plan, they may also plan differently, and so that might make a lot of difference in terms of how people behave and how they're treated and how they interact within the community as well. But very, very interesting topic. Maybe we should invite you to the next show and then you could be the moderator. That's very good.
One last point.
Thanks. Go ahead.
It's not our fault as individuals that we're here. We're here because of our parents. But eventually our parents are going to go. Mm-hmm. And then who's responsible for us? Mm-hmm. It's us, right? You can't run from that. Each person, when they become an adult, they are responsible for themselves. So it's not some country who adopted you or somebody who gives you a work permit to reside in their country or to work in their country for a while, suddenly responsible for you. If things stop working out for you there, then you need to go home. Saying that to say this, look up a country called Andorra and how it handles the work permit process. Your eyes are going to blaze.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's our homework.
All right.
I was going to say, some of the employers tend to say that when you create these types of changes, it adversely affects their business. So, for example, you employ X from the United States, and that person gets to know your business and so on and so forth, and you're comfortable having that person working in your environment, and there's a bit of a headache involved in trying to get that person, getting somebody replaced and so on. So people sometimes argue, employers sometimes argue that, this type of change adversely affects the business. My question is whether or not the Caymanian community would support a policy whereby, and this is something that would be entrenched in law, when a permit is issued, it's tied to an understanding that you identify a Caymanian and get that Caymanian trained up to assume responsibility for that job, provided the Caymanian has the requisite academic background, depending on the type of job that's involved. Because it'll be interesting to see whether or not folks are up to that, are sufficient. Because this system that we have, where we rely significantly on the work permit fees for revenue, is a cancer. Because and it's a cancer of the kind that actually robs the citizens of dignity. We hear it all the time where students come back home, they're properly qualified and so on, and they can't get jobs. People tell folks to their faces that we don't want you here, we prefer people that have Caymanian status. This type of system that we have now developed, and I call it a cancer deliberately, we have to really think long and hard, horizontally and vertically, about how we're going to find some balance, on the one hand to ensure that employers are relatively satisfied and that the Caymanians are equally satisfied as well. And the apology that Caymanians are always having to make for being Caymanian and want to get an opportunity to work in their own community. We'll just see how folks are, I've gone on record, and this is not to say that folks that I'm running with necessarily agree with this position that I take, but I've gone on record saying that what we now have in immigration should be transferred to labor, and the Minister of Labor ought to take personal responsibility for this form of employment, so that at the end of 4 years, if that minister does not deliver in a manner that makes the community feel satisfied with his performance, he or she should be swept out. I think when people are put on the line like that, because it's a job, you're employed to do a job, and this is what we, but it's just a personal view.
But the thing is, I always say that immigration matters are the hardest ones to fix, because you have a mixture of people within your society, and you have to try and have a balance to fit all of them. So it is very, very difficult. But when you look at a small community like Cayman, you have to, obviously, Caymanians first, and then the rest of the world. And so it is a really, really tricky thing to get right. And so I don't envy whoever is responsible for that portfolio at all. But I know that you want to run off and leave us as well. So I have my last question for you, and then we'll take a break.
Yeah.
You are running in my district, Town. So you can have the final say in terms of telling me why I should vote for you. And I'm not going to vote for you just because you're a woman, so you know that. But
well, you tell me who is better out there that you know to represent you. Give me one person that you think that is better than me to represent you.
I like that.
Talk
Okay.
about putting it back on you. The volley goes back to Juliet.
I like that. I like that. Well said. Well put. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, from Patrice and I, we just want to wish you all the best. Thank you very much for coming, and we're going to a break.
Thanks very much.
Hi, welcome back. This evening it's Patrice and Juliet. We've just lost our two guests who were here with us for a while. Interesting conversation, Patrice.
Very much so. And the callers kind of threw the gauntlet down as well, too, by throwing in some things that I think we as a country perhaps brush over or address in very broad strokes and broad terms, but our callers asked us some tough questions.
Absolutely. One thing, though, I must ask Joey to have some music specifically for Patrice and Juliet, since we're always on his show. What do you think?
I think so, too. I think I'd like to throw some ideas up there. You know, I am woman, hear me roar. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I really am kidding. But it's not a bad song.
But looking back at the conversation that we had this evening with the two female candidates, we were talking about things about women in politics. Why do we think that women are not more involved in politics? But do you think that women are treated differently in the political arena than the men are?
I'm going to first start off by saying that lovely woman that helped to pave the way. The most visible one was the Honourable, sorry, I don't know if she's honourable, but I think she ought to be at this point, the Honourable Annie Holder-Bodden. And if we take ourselves back and imagine what she must have endured to be the first female member of the Legislative Assembly, and every time I say the first female legislative member of the assembly, it makes me cringe. I saw a poster the other day that says, I'm not just a good female president, I am a good president. We have to get to the point where we stop indicating, highlighting, and distinguishing whether or not a person is a good candidate for whatever role they're in based on their gender. All right, so that's my first thing. That we need to stop and think about how far we've gotten in terms of equality and how much more we need to do to change our mindsets, to stop seeing women as good leaders because they're female, but are they just good leaders, period. We need to stop seeing people as good leaders because they're black, but they're just good leaders, period. We need to stop looking at color, gender, disabilities, inability or abilities, and just see people for whom they are. Granted, we are, almost 70 years beyond the actual breaking off of segregation, but we're still segregated in our minds, in the ways in which we deal with people, and that needs to stop.
Well, I don't know if the gender thing is going to work, because women, we like to express ourselves that we have certain qualities, one, because of our gender. I was listening to one of the guests who was speaking earlier and hearing her say that as a woman politician, these are the qualities that she will bring to the house that men can't bring anyway. So women, they were raised differently. They manage the household differently. They manage the finances differently, and probably have a broader view of the society than men do, to some degree, based on what I was hearing earlier. And so it means that the gender itself has created this person who
qualifier, yeah.
Yeah, that's a qualifier because of the gender, so they were raised differently. So maybe we now need to say that when we raise our children, we should raise them exactly the same. The guys do the same thing that the girls do, and perhaps we would have a different politician growing up.
I think so. It also does something else as well too, which I think is what both ladies were alluding to. The field of candidates is 56. And there are 8 female candidates, and I use the word lightly. I use the word very loosely. There are 8 female, and the balance are male.
Mm-hmm. But maybe that's what our society has created, because we've decided that the men are the politicians and the women are the homemakers.
then we're ripe for change. We're ripe for revolution, as I like to say.
Well, do you think we're harder on the women though than we are on the men? We set the standard, we set the bar higher for the women than we do for the men. No,
I think we do. But we do that I think we do that in an unconscious manner to set them up to fail, so to speak. And I know this is probably going to rub a few people the wrong way, but when we look at the young lady who talked about maternity leave and how far behind we are within the Caribbean and within the world, we make a distinction and a difference when we give the women on maternity leave a certain period of time, and then we only give the fathers who want to be there to support their child, to support their wives, their girlfriends, a much shorter period of time. I think they should have the opportunity to at least take the same time off. Whether or not they choose to is another matter. Okay, and we have to look at the cost, because I know businesses are going to, business owners are probably shaking their head at me and going, she has no idea what she's talking about. She has no idea what that costs. But when you have parents who want to become more involved in their lives, who have to then say take a leave of absence, you're losing that wealth. You're losing that wealth of knowledge. You're losing that wealth of experience, and having to make do with temporary work. So how much better off are you by forcing them to take that time off in a different form? So it's a conversation that needs to happen locally. It needs to happen on a policy level and a strategic level. We need to look at what kind of society we want from all the aspects that matter.
Absolutely. But we talk a lot about the women issues, and we also have to look at the other side, because I hear men saying, yes, you ladies are talking about women issues, but what about men? Men have some of the similar issues. We talk about a man who goes through a divorce from his wife, and he loses everything or is left with little or nothing because the court decides, okay, there are children involved, so we're going to give the wife the house, and you have to start from scratch. And he says, but I'm the person who built the house. I paid the mortgage. I provided for my wife and my children. My wife chose to leave me. Why am I being punished? So when we're looking at society, we're looking at, yes, the things that we as women want for women, but are we then going in the opposite direction and being unfair to the men?
Interesting perspective. I think we are, but again, there are so many structures and policies and stratas of our economy and population that need to be pulled up. We're obviously progressing in all these different areas at different rates and at different levels. So we need to impute equality and equitable characteristics and approaches in our legal framework, in our legal structures. We need to impute it in our educational structures, because we've seen so many statistics talking about how boys are doing differently than girls, and who's doing better and how and why. There are so many ways in which our society needs improvement, and it goes right back to Teresa's point about how we've placed ourselves on that economic trajectory, and we've, to a certain degree, ignored the social aspects that needed to be pulled up alongside of it to make sure that we were strong enough and capable enough and supported as a community in order to take advantage of those economic miracles or economic advantages that came about from pursuing economic structures.
And I know that some of the women were saying to us earlier that, we women are not going to go back into the ice age. We want to move forward. Women want to be progressive. The women want to be progressive. And I think on one of the shows that we did, we spoke about how in the very old history, women were treated as material. Women were treated as chattel. Women were possessions. And even today, some men still want to treat us women as possession. I own you, so I can do with you as I please.
Yes, they do. So I'm sorry, I will not touch that one. I think all my friends who know me know that I have very strong ideas about that idea of ownership in relationships. And so I will spare us my soapbox this evening, but I think we have a caller. Oh, sorry, we've lost the caller. Please call back. We're anxious to hear your thoughts because nobody in here wants me to get on the soapbox of men who want to own women.
But moving on, we're talking about all these different things about women, and I want to come back again because one of the questions I had for Teresa and Miss Velma, and I'll finish that thought. Our caller is back. Go ahead.
Hi, yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, sorry, changing the topic that you're on right now. I want to get back to the work permit issue.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, just a quick little thing. I know that a few months back, Joey Hill, in one interview that he had, he was mentioning something regarding the work permit. I know that it's a touchy thing, but just remember, work permit is not something you can just take straight across the board. Each different industry has different necessities.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the financial industry, it definitely can't do without work permits. The people that work in the financial industry, a lot of them are highly qualified, highly studied, and I think that most Caymanians that are good workers that in the financial industry do have a job. They are not unemployed. I think the unemployment is in other fields, not in the financial industry. Like I said, the problem is that, you keep saying Caymanian need to be employed. But again, a Caymanian need to understand too that me as an employer hire a Caymanian and he don't come to work on Monday, he don't come to work on Friday, and he performs 2 or 3 days through the week and he don't perform good. Then I'm forced to look at an employee that, with a work permit that would perform for me. And, maybe because he's forced by being, not exactly forced, but if he wants work permit renewed, he got to work for it.
Mm-hmm.
But a Caymanian feel like, okay, I'm a Caymanian, he has to keep me, he can't fire me, and stuff like that. So, it's a catchy thing too, I know it's a delicate thing too. Plenty of people don't like to hear this, but the fact is that, you go to, for instance, a bank. I'm not going to call a name, but I know a bank that, they got, say, 5 tellers. 3 tellers are Caymanian, 3 tellers Caymanian, 2 other tellers are status holders.
Mm-hmm.
So the 2 status holders come to work every day. They perform good every day. The year end, and they may took 3 or 4, 5, 6 days. The Caymanian had the 12 to 6 days in the first 3 months of the year.
Mm.
How come the Caymanian getting sick so much and the staff and the work permit holder? The other one's not. The status holder don't get sick. I mean, they're like strange. I mean, you get a flu, you call in sick. Your daughter's sick. Your daughter feel bad, or she had a period, you call in sick. You got to real give and take.
I hear you, and I accept some of what you're saying in that we have people who behave differently regardless of whether they're Caymanian or not, because I've had experiences with different nationalities where some of the behavior is the same, but the expectation is that as a Caymanian, and this is your country, and you want to have a job, that you will behave differently. I think that's what you're trying to say. And then
I want to say, you need to, apart from just working towards getting the work permit holders out of the country, you need to also work towards getting the Caymanian to understand that, you need to work. The people hire you for working. The people not hiring you because you are Caymanian. People hire you because you need a white employee.
Right.
If I have my business and I depend on that, and I have 4 or 5 people working for me, I expect 4 or 5 people to come to work. because I'm paying them to work.
Yep.
But if two of them people are Caymanian and they're not coming to work day off and day on and stuff like that, they're missing like 5-6 days per month working days, then they're kind of killing on me as an employer to keep the people on. So when I don't know if you noticed that, you know, when the market collapsed there in 2008 or something like that, Butterfield laid off like, I would say like 12 people, okay, said because of the economy. A couple of months afterwards, they were hiring other people. But you know why? Because those 12 people that they fired, or most of the people that wasn't performing properly, so they had an excuse to fire them. So you need to get to work, you know. So you work.
Well,
I go to work every day.
Yeah.
I'm a Cayman, I go to work every day.
Right.
You know, and I'm starting that, you know, because I get paid for it.
Right, but I also think that, you know, because of that perception, and some of it is real, people have behaved that way, Caymanians have behaved that way, it has now created a problem for the rest of us where employers now determine, well, if you're Caymanian, you're not likely to work. So even before we're given a chance, sometimes that is how we're perceived, so therefore we don't get the opportunity.
I agree on that.
And yeah, so we do it to ourselves sometimes. And there's good and bad in every nationality. So Cayman is not really an exception. But I think because of the vast number of work permits, we tend to look at that and say, well, it's because employees have this idea that they need people who will work, and they feel that we're not going to get the quality of performance from Caymanians, so they implement these permits. But I wanted to share, because you mentioned something earlier, and I am going to call the bank's name. There was a bank that I do business with, and I think that a lot of us can follow their principle in terms of customer service and training and so on, and that is Cayman National Bank. Now, obviously, everybody else's experience might be different, but I remember many years ago when I was opening a bank account, I walked into one bank first, and that one I won't call the name of it, but I walked in and the young lady was on the phone, and somebody said to her, there's a customer in the line, and she says, you don't see I'm on the phone. When I finish talking on the phone, I'll deal with her. So I politely said to her, no problem, you stay on the phone, and I left. I walked in the door for Cayman National Bank, and the young lady was sitting in the hall, and she was the receptionist. And as I walked in, she said, I heard her say, I have a customer, I'll have to call you back. Now that was so different for me. So guess where my bank account was opened. But my point is that these were both Caymanians. And look at the difference in performance. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because I'm a Caymanian, I'm going to give you bad service. It just means...
No.
Right.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. I'm saying that they're good Caymanian, that, you know, they are, a lot of them. That's how the country get up.
Right.
By having the good Caymanian. What I'm saying, the good Cayman mostly employ, you know. Don't get me wrong. If I have a business, listen to me now, and I got a Caymanian that can work good, why should I get a foreigner and go pay a work permit for him?
Exactly.
No, I want a Caymanian because I don't have to pay a work permit. I don't worry about how someone would stay. I don't worry about nothing about him because he's a Caymanian. He live here. Right. He can perform and things. I don't have no problem with that. What I'm saying, the problem with me is that, you know, that I think that, you know, you need to probably like educate, you know, the new
younger Caymanians.
Young Caymanian to perform. That's what you're getting paid for.
What needs to be addressed is work ethic. And I'm sure that every employer out there is applauding their head off, going, we would rather have somebody with a strong work ethic. We'd rather have somebody that's willing to learn. We would rather have somebody that we can train up. Ideally, they want the skills already present. Already present. But if you've got the right work ethic and work attitude, it goes a long way. However, what we have done is created a situation in which we are making blanket generalizations about every nationality, every situation, and what we need to do is to start looking at each situation for what it is. But both groups need to do that.
I have a question though, because, you know, I'm hearing everything you say, and I accept a lot of what you say, but I also call this generation, for the most part, sorry, how the politics going on.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
But this generation, I look at this generation and I think that they are the entitlement generation. A lot of them feel, well, I'm entitled. I went to school.
Yes.
My parents sent me off to school, and I've come back with a degree, and I don't have to push very hard But I also blame the parents because we have created this generation.
Yes.
Because we talk about work ethics, but how you don't automatically develop that.
You have to
Somebody
learn.
should have had to have guided you along the way, created certain, and it begins in the home. So then you go to the workplace and you come and you're lazy, you're laid back, you are, you just feel, okay, I got the job and I don't have to put much effort into it. So again, I really take your points on board because we need to now look at how we raise our children.
Yeah, we got employees, for instance, at Pricewaterhouse. You got Mr. Sean Parsh one day.
Mm-hmm.
He went in, he went study, he come back, he worked hard, and now he's a partner in Pricewaterhouse. He's a Cayman partner.
Right.
Everybody love him. You got Peter Small, another Cayman partner in PricewaterhouseCoopers. That because those people work and put in their time and did the duties. And I mean, if another Cayman should look at that as an example. I got another example. My daughter, she's about to come out of high school. First thing she said, she want her to get out so she can start working, get a car. Hey, no, you're going to study. You're going to continue further education because I think that one of the other things that, we keep saying that we Cayman need vocational school. I agree. 100% agree. But also, we need to get Cayman into the higher positions. To get higher position, you need to study.
Mm-hmm.
Simple. You can't come in and say, for instance, the same person mentioned, the two came in and that Pricewaterhouse partner. They get that position because they went away and studied. They studied and they put their effort in it. But if you don't want to do that, how can you become a partner or a player part? You're a professional and you only have a little bachelor degree. No, you must be qualified to get a position. Simple.
And that's where education comes in, and not just education from a formal perspective, but education, probably public education on what are the real expectations for how you attain these types of positions.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I repeat, I prefer Cayman employees, because I don't have to pay for work permits. They're here. I don't have no problem with them and everything else. I'm just saying, that the ones that get a job must try to hold their job, try to do what they get paid for. You know what I mean?
Right.
Simple.
Well, thank you on that final note. We'll encourage all our young people who are listening to remember that there is no automatic transfer of skills or building of. Put it this way: you have to put in the work. You have to start it from the ground up. None of us were automatically shuttled into top positions. We had to work our ways up. And the two young men that he spoke about, who were partners, they had to start at a certain level and work their way up.
On that note, I just want to say thanks to our guests who were here with us this evening, and I also want to thank Joey for letting us just take over his show. And he's off to a meeting now, but we really appreciate you, the audience, and those of you who called, keep the calls coming. Have a good evening. Thank you, Patrice. Over and out.
Thank